morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church, right here in Beaumont, Texas. And we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today, my special guest is Mr. Marcelo Morfino, our Southeast Texas biggest Redskins fans ever. Welcome, Mo.
Thanks for having me back.
Hey, look, we ain't gonna play around with the Redskins today.
Well, they're going to be sitting on the couch with the Cowboys, so it's all right.
Hey, man, okay, now don't go there, Mo. We coming back next year.
That's what they say every year.
Hey, Mo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm currently an investigator at the district attorney's office. Been there since 15. Prior to that, had about 13, 14 years in law enforcement, and actively involved in our community, trying to work with kids and young people to try to curb some of the things that we're seeing in our community. Try to keep the handcuffs away from it, keep them in school, keep them working, keep it positive.
Hey, Mo, on yesterday I had a special guest, Miss Jean. She came to talk to us about sex trafficking and human trafficking. And so today I want to talk to you from a law enforcement perspective on this issue that we see that's happening. So what is human or sex trafficking?
Human or sex trafficking, and I'll read it straight from the law for you. It's not something that just happens in Chicago or Detroit or big cities like Houston. It's here. It's in small communities. It's in communities even smaller than ours. But I'll give you the definition and we can go into it. So this is in the Penal Code, trafficking of persons. A person commits an offense if the person knowingly traffics another person with the intent that the trafficked person engage in forced labor or services, receives a benefit from participating in a venture that involves an activity described by Subdivision 1, including by receiving labor or services the person knows are forced labor or services. This is the key in these cases. Traffics another person through force, fraud, or coercion.
Wow.
It doesn't have to be violence. It can be coercion, it can be fraud, it can be force. Causes the trafficked person to engage in conduct prohibited, and these are the conducts: prostitution, promotion of prostitution, aggravated promotion of prostitution, or compelling prostitution. So there's different laws and violations that if someone is forced to do them, then the trafficker is charged and culpable.
Okay.
Further, receives a benefit from participating in the venture that involves an active described by Subdivision 3, or engages in sexual conduct with the person trafficked in the manner described in Subdivision 3. Traffics a child with intent that the trafficked child engage in forced labor services, receives a benefit from participating in a venture that involves an activity described in this subdivision, including by receiving labor or services the person knows are forced labor or services. Number 7 is traffics a child and by any means causes the trafficked child to engage or become the victim of conduct prohibited by, continuous sexual abuse of a young child or children, indecency with a child, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, prostitution, promotion of prostitution, aggravated promotion of prostitution, compelling prostitution, sexual performance by a child, employment harmful to children, possession or promotion of child pornography, and receives a benefit from participating in a venture that involves an activity described by Subdivision 7. So
Mo, that's a whole lot, but break it down to the common man.
Okay, basically, in the past, somebody would see a lady, young or old, at a bus stop or at a hotel. Oh, well, that's a prostitute. What they weren't realizing is some of these women, they have mental health issues. They have trauma issues. They have drug issues. And so these traffickers are going out there and they're preying on them. And so what law enforcement, and here locally, we'll talk about in just a minute, there's been a real push to make this a victim and trauma-informed response. So yes, someone may be horribly down on their luck and doing things that they wouldn't fathom, but when you start dealing with them in an individual basis and say, you know what, they've had mental health issues for 10 years and have been treated. Because of that, they fell under the system.
Yeah.
And then you go and find out who's forcing them through fraud, coercion, or force.
Yeah.
Then you build those cases. We have, on a state level, Janet Casper. She's the regional administrator for East Texas Child Sex Trafficking Team from the governor's office. They've been awesome. They've come in here, help us set up training, help us really get off the ground. Houston is a hub, unfortunately. And
wow.
We're close enough that we've reached out to them, got some help. My office, I work, District Attorney Bob Wortham has really jumped off on this, and a prosecutor that handles the sex trafficking is Kim Pipkin, and they've started Southeast Texas Alliance Against Trafficking, STAT.
Now Mo, we are seeing now younger and younger kids been abducted and been put in this situation?
Well, what happens is, and it doesn't just go straight to trafficking, Pastor. We need to think about how disconnected are we as a community with our children. What do we know? Who are they talking to? What are they watching? What are they looking at? These things right here.
That's good.
How many times do you go to a restaurant and you have a family of 4 or 5 sitting and no one talks to each other?
They're on
their
phone.
phone.
Yeah.
So as a parent, if you don't know who they're talking to or what they're talking about, that's problem number one. On the coalition and what they're doing with STAT, which is great, is let's say a parent has an issue. We now are publicizing who you can go talk to. Is it a trauma issue? Is it a mental health issue? Is it a depression issue? Is it a drug issue? So before it may come to fruition into a bigger problem, we have different places. And also, let's be honest, there's certain things as men that we're not going to, be comfortable probably talking to a victim, but if we can put them in the right place, in the right scenario, then they empower themselves. Then they have a way, and maybe they have a friend, or maybe they have another person, or someone may not be involved in it, but says, you know what, everything I'm being taught in this training, or what they talk about at school, so-and-so in my class, I'm worried about her. And then they feel empowered to say, hey, I think my friend has some issues. So that's how we're going to turn it around locally.
Now, it's not just about girls, little girls, or little boys. I mean, boys are also included in this.
Unfortunately, men are
unfortunately, yeah. And so are you seeing now, since Houston is the hub, I-10 is that gateway to directions.
Correct.
And unfortunately, we are in that.
What we have to do with that is, and this is different than your normal case where someone goes and let's say breaks into a house or robs a store or commits a traffic violation. They're from here, they're committing a crime here. You may have people from out of town, or you may have it to where these traffickers are setting up shop, let's say for a few weeks or a month until it gets, the heat gets on them, and then they're going to go down the road. So having contacts, and that's what's great about people like Janet Casper in the governor's office, and I can't say enough about DPS has really helped us locally with their task force, and HPD. There's a joint task force in Harris County that has come all the way out here and helped us in our cases. And so those guys, there's Agent Rainwater, Agent Benson, Sergeant Wall. Some of those guys have been instrumental in teaching us some things that we weren't used to, and then from there. You go to another training and you meet somebody that works for Denver, you meet somebody that works in Florida, you meet somebody that works in Louisiana, and you start picking up the phone. Hey, we've got a girl that is from your area. We've been looking for her for 3 months.
Wow.
So the communication is key on building these relationships, building these working relationships, and sharing information.
So earlier you said it's not just about big cities. Are we seeing that in our community?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately. I can't talk about open cases, but here pretty soon we're going to see some things. We had that one case last year that they prosecuted out of our office, and the guy got, I think close to 60 or 70 years.
Wow.
It's horrible what some of these guys are doing to these young girls. And so I think with more of the attention, you don't want to have it to where it's a case and the person gets however much time in prison. We want to really, I can't stress this enough, make it a victim's approach, trauma-informed approach, and hopefully try and teach these young women. And some have unfortunately been in it very, very long. They've been brought into it by family or been brought into it by loved ones or so-called loved ones. And so it's getting, people like Harvest House, Lisa Bowler, Kara Harrington at the Garth House, Spindletop, Family Service Southeast Texas, the Rape and Crisis Center. I can go on and on, but everyone's teaming up. Everyone's getting on the same plan and saying, hey, if we're the forensic interviewers, we're going to be the best at forensic interviewing. If we're the ones that have the ability to go out and recover these girls, then we're going to get everyone in touch. So everyone's doing their part, the cog in the wheel. And Kim in the office has really taken a stand-up approach to putting everyone on the same page.
Okay, so Mo, with this new organization, this STAT, we have the information that we could put on the screen there. For those who need help, they're able to call.
That's if it's at the ultimate. If someone's being trafficked, yes. The flyer that we have, this is so new that we've had a couple trainings. It's being put out, but my biggest thing, it's no different than if you're in a neighborhood and something doesn't look right. You've got a guy that's got 4 or 5 young girls in the car that don't belong there, pick up the phone and call. A phone
It's
call.
that simple, yeah.
As a business owner, if it's different if it's a camp counselor or a coach or someone coming in with a team, but if you see a guy with a group of girls and things just don't look right, pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
Call the police, say, hey, something doesn't look right. And it's on them to come out and maybe look at the video or identify the vehicle, whatever it might be. But that's how things happen. And I can't talk on specifics, our case, but other crimes occurred that opened our eyes to certain things. And then the collaboration with other agencies, other areas, and that's what we're here to do. And then on the backside, which is not criminal, the education to coaches, to schools, to pastors, getting these kids comfortable to speaking with themselves. Because some of them, some are going to be the bullies or the ones that push it, and other ones are going to see it but not feel empowered to say something. And hopefully that's where some of this training. There's some training that the governor's office is putting together through DPS, and it's called the Man Kindness Project. That's coming out pretty soon. Awesome. I got to go to Austin, to the governor's office, and see a living testimony of what the gentleman from DPS that's done it with his guys and his people and his church and his group. It's amazing. You're taking a program, and I don't want to say too much about it because it's theirs and they haven't put it out yet, but basically you're taking it, and we talk about women and girls. Well, who's subjecting these girls to this treatment? It's men.
It's men.
Boys.
Yeah.
So their program is to target leaders in the school, athletes, different people like that, and say we are not going to tolerate this behavior of girls on our campus or teachers in our school. So we're not going to call them the B word. We're not going to allow someone to do things or say things. And from what they told us, it was amazing to watch. And so I'm excited.
Wow.
Once that gets put together and pushed out to our area, we're going to be in the forefront of it locally. And
That's
I think
good.
it's going to be
That's
something that we can, because I think if we do that, yes, we're going to talk about trafficking, but we're also going to teach men how to be men. Go back to, small things, open doors.
Chivalry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think we really have to go back to old school to divert from some of this, because right now they're all in technology.
Now, that's what I was just going to bring up, because most parents are not hip to what their kids are watching on these devices.
They need to be.
Well, I mean, we were talking earlier about the different sites or the different apps that they use in order to, to recruit and also to do business.
Well, it's the communication. I've had parents tell me, well, I watch my phone bill. I know who they talk to. If that's what you're looking for is your phone bill, you're lost.
You're lost.
Wow. We can't expect somebody else. We can't expect that teacher. The teacher's there to teach, not to be the disciplinarian or the communicator. Yes, they can be, but in a home, whether my parents got divorced when I was young. I had a step parent. So as a parent, and now that I am a parent, our duty is to communicate with our kids. I'm not the best dad in the world, but I try every day.
Yeah.
And I try and speak to my kids and give to my kids maybe what I didn't or what I missed. And there's nothing wrong as a man to say, we've called each other. Hey, how do we do this? How do we do that?
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with extending a hand and saying, this might be a little stronger in your field or this field. Reach out as a man and say, I need help with this or this. And we all build and grow together.
So, Mo, how can a parent find out these different apps that their kids may be having on their phone to try to...
Right now, I think that with the stat being so new, there's things like that being put in progress.
Okay,
There's
good.
going to be training for law enforcement. There's going to be training for communities. There's going to be training for schools. The first meeting they had, there was over 70, close to 100 people from service providers, school districts, police departments, counselors. I mean, it was a good group of people to start sharing, because one person's stronghold may be another person's weak side, but together, it's it's filling the gaps.
Yeah.
So this is something that's new. In the past maybe we weren't aware that it was needed, but now that we know it's needed, the office and Bob Wortham and Ken Pipkin have taken this full force, and so we're going to try as hard as we can. Not to be reactive, but be proactive.
Proactive, yeah. Now, okay, Mo. So if you come up on a situation where it's been trafficked and it's a young person, let's just say a young girl, they tend to put them in the category of prostitution versus trying to figure out really what's going on.
Well, and that's where we're training law enforcement, and I'm still I've been doing this about a year now, and there's still some things that I need to learn. But the way that you would talk to someone stopped in a prostitution sting can change. If you show them that it's a much more victim trauma-based approach, they may realize, wait a minute, he's not treating me or talking to me like these other guys or she. And it might not be the first time, but instead of charging them, let's say, prostitution and offering them no help, find out, do you have an addiction issue? Do you have a mental health issue? Do you have children? Do you see them?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're talking to the language that they don't get spoken to, because they're told when to get up, when to go to sleep, when to eat, where to go, come on. And so you may open a door where they say, you know what, I've been addicted to whatever it might be for 10 years. And so then all of a sudden, instead of charging them with that Class C misdemeanor, you're going to go and get them some help, and all of a sudden they're going to say, you know what, there's 10 other girls that are in my same boat. So it's that approach that's going to change that side of it. But also, again, it all reverts back to who's buying. We need to change the mindset on who's buying and who's enabling this business even to go on.
Because if it's a prostitution, somebody is sleeping with them.
Exactly.
So we got to get that person.
Yep.
So what is the push now when it comes down to the offender in that sense?
And I don't want to speak for the office because I can't talk about open cases, but you can look at people who are constantly offending. This is what they do. They're going to be looked at a lot different than some guy that might have been, I don't know, for whatever reason, thinking he needed to call for companionship, and it's been one time. So you look at the ones that are, and also, let's be honest, there's guys that look for young girls, juvenile girls. Those are predators. It's all wrong. It's all predatorial. But you just look at it kind of on the spectrum of where is this person fit in. But again, they're the last of our worries. Getting these girls the help they need is the biggest.
You know, one of the things that Gene had said yesterday was that the social media is where the predators are looking for their next prey. And
social media and apps. Think of it this way: how many times do you look and you'll see where someone will say, "I'm upset about this," or "I'm mad about this," and that's exactly. It's no different than a lion in the jungle out trying to get something to eat.
Yeah.
These guys are going to look, and if they have a girl that's already working, you don't think they're going to look in their circle of friends and say, "Hey, that girl's always talking about how she's depressed. She's always talking about how nobody cares about her."
Yep.
And all of a sudden, he comes in like a king, and he's buying her clothes, and he's buying her food, and he's taking her out. Well, at first, it's the good life. Then all of a sudden, just like that, you owe me.
Now that's one of the things that you had mentioned earlier in the code. Now that if they're purchasing gifts for them and stuff like that.
Well, that's just grooming basically. But afterwards, let's say if they say, well, you know what, for the first 2 weeks you lived here, and it lived here, a hotel, or a trap house.
It cost me this.
Exactly. Now you got to work it off. That's not. I mean, that's indentured servitude. That's not. And so also then you start throwing in maybe they've seen him get heavy-handed with somebody. In their mind, they're saying, well, if I don't do what he says, then he might do that to me.
And that's the coercion. So he didn't physically beat me, but I seen him beat somebody else.
Right.
Now I understand I don't want to go that route.
Right. And if I just do what he says, then he won't do that to me.
Ooh.
So the other part, too, is, and this is such a big pot that we're talking about, we have to have that, and I keep going back to it, trauma-informed approach to be able to get these girls to even talk to us. Because if we don't find out the facts of what they've been through, we can't meet the elements of the crime. We also can't find out how many other towns they've been, how many other places they've been, where else they've been victimized. So the whole gambit of really getting to the bottom of this is communication with the victims and going that route, and then having the service providers. We haven't even gotten there yet. There's been times where we haven't been ready locally to take on some of these things, but that's changed.
Now, what's the house? Because one of the things she mentioned the other day was the
Harvest House.
The Harvest House, yeah.
Lisa Bowler has been doing this for years, and she and her volunteers go out in the middle of the night when they're called, and they recover these girls.
And that's the partnership that you were talking about earlier. Right. Hey, look, the local community is coming together where we're partnering with each other, so that we could make an impact on the lives of these young people.
Before, you might have had different entities trying to do the same thing, and they're spinning their wheels because there isn't an answer. Well, now let's say if we need a facility to take them, now that's being worked on. If we need local, or we need maybe something out of town, because some of these girls, if they're from here, then maybe the safest place for them is not being here, because that trafficker is going to go looking for them. So establishing those relationships, and really, the governor's office and the whole push and drive between this child sex trafficking team. I can't say enough about Janet Casper and her team. When we need something, you make a phone call, a text. If they don't have it, next thing you know, within a week or two, you're gonna and sometimes within a day. I had one young lady that was out of state, and we didn't have the contacts. I made a phone call within an hour. I had a contact in the state that she was in, of where she could go and at least talk to a counselor and get cleaned up and detox. So it's unfortunately a real problem. It's a local problem, and we just
state and national.
Yes. And so pretending like it's not here is not going to help us. It's just like any other crime.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough for the teamwork that I've seen come together in the last year or so locally, between law enforcement, service providers, local, out of state, out of city. But we're going in the right direction in Beaumont. People need to feel proud of the community should feel proud of what our leaders are doing when it comes to combating human sex trafficking.
Hey, I think we have the Harvest House number that we could put on the screen. There it is right there. It's 409-790-0798. And we're going to have Lisa come on so she could really give us an in-depth look at the Harvest House and what kind of services they provide to the community.
Kara Harrington is the contact at the Garth House.
The Garth House, okay.
They do forensic interviewing, and they're starting to get involved in trafficking as well. Then Spindletop has their family services, Southeast Texas. There's the Right Crisis Center. So all these entities are starting to work together.
That's good.
Because everybody can kind of be a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And so, Mo, I want to thank you for coming on and talk about this subject matter. Even though you are a Redskins fan, even though you're a big Redskins fan, but no, seriously. Parents, you need to really watch your children, talk to your children, get into their lives so that you will know what's going on. And the predators are looking for those children who feel abandoned, who feel isolated, and so we want to make sure that we do what we can to get the information out to the public, especially in this area and other areas too. But right now, this is one of the things that is happening that we need to get control of. And so
I would tell parents too, sometimes there's things that parents don't feel comfortable talking to their own kids about.
Yeah.
And that's when I said there needs to be either a school contact, a neighbor, another family member, a coach, someone that child or that parent can say, hey, I don't understand this stuff, but I know something's going on. Will you talk to her, or will you talk to him? And that's the biggest thing I think we have as parents or as adults is I don't want to sound weak.
Yeah.
It's not weak.
Yeah, if I don't know,
If we're talking about our kids, there should be no rules when it comes to saving them, nurturing them, and helping them. So just that asking for help may stop something before it ever starts or catch it as it started. So that's huge. And
of course, it's a continuing education for those persons that you just mentioned. Coaches, teachers, pastors. Everybody.
Everyone. It affects everyone. And, we're talking about sex trafficking, but if you really think about it on a life level,
it's human trafficking.
We may stop a crime before it occurs if we stop thinking it's somebody else's job or somebody else's problem. If we're more involved, it takes a village.
Well, what's that old saying? You see something, say something?
Exactly.
We got common sense, Mo. If we see a van load of girls and one guy, and the guy buying all the material for the girls, that might be something when you
take a license plate number down. Call the police and say, hey, I'm at this store and there's actually video here. And it might be the one piece of the puzzle that they've been looking for. They may be from out of state. It may be that they move from hotels every night or whatever trap houses are in. So little things like that can be huge. And, there's Crime Stoppers. If you don't want to leave your name and number, you can call Crime Stoppers, 833-TIPS. That's another facet. You can text your tip to Crime Stoppers.
Yeah.
But
you know what, Mo? We have to, as a community, get out of the mindset
it's somebody else's problem.
It's somebody else's problem, and that you're snitching.
Right.
You could save somebody's life.
You will save somebody's life.
Yeah.
And also think of
what if it was your daughter?
Exactly.
I would want somebody to reach out and call the police and say, hey man, this doesn't look right. or your son for that matter. I
Right,
mean,
right.
because it's no discrimination now.
Right. I think if we all take an active approach and stop condemning, judging, labeling, and just say somebody's broken. It's not my job to fix them, but somebody's broken, and I noticed that, and I need to get the right people here.
Yep. All right. Well, listen, I want to thank Mo for joining us today, and I want to thank you for joining us today on what's happening in our neighborhood. And we will see you next time on our broadcast.
Go Redskins.